What we're about to talk about is nothing less than a landmark story, and just about everybody has at least some idea of what it's about. Here's why you should read it anyway. Welcome back again to the library, Readers and Rapscallions. Good to see everyone. Today I'm going to be going over one of my absolute favorite all-timer books. This is one that not only do I love the story, I also love the movie that was based off of it, and it's something that is pretty foundational to who I am and who I've become as a person. You've seen it in the thumbnail. That's going to be Jurassic Park. I adore this story. It's an extraordinary book. It's one of the landmark films of all time, and it all started with Michael Crichton in 1990. Wrote this book, and at that point he had known Steven Spielberg for a while, and then was asked, "Hey, you got anything good going on?" And then Crichton says, "Well, I do have this book about dinosaurs," and the rights to the movie were bought pretty much right away. Jurassic Park was one of the biggest movies ever made, certainly at the time, and the rest is kind of history. Now, even if you have seen that movie, again, one of the most popular movies ever made, it's still worth reading this book. So, just in case for people who don't know, let's go over a bit of what it's about. So, following a set of circumstances in which a worker shows up at a remote hospital in Costa Rica with mysterious injuries, and a handful of strange creatures are seen in the local area. A series of experts, Alan Grant and Ellie Sattler, are approached by an industrialist named John Hammond to basically go to some kind of theme park and sign off on its safety and its value to basically put investors at ease. These are people who dig up fossils in the ground. What could they have to do with a theme park? So, turns out, when they get there, they meet all these other experts in the field, and oh wow, this is actually a place with living, breathing dinosaurs that have been brought back to life. And they've been resurrected with advanced cloning technology. So, just like with a lot of the things that mankind decides to try and mess with, we get too big for our britches, our reach always exceeds our grasp, and everything goes wrong. So, yeah, guys, that's going to be Jurassic Park. I know I've got the shirt for the occasion. If we're talking about the good in the story, the good things, why is this book worth my time? Let's start with the basics. It's got the dinosaurs in it. Firstly, not that many really good books out there are about dinosaurs. I know because I've tried looking. There's just not that many of them. If you know one, please recommend it in the comments. But it's also kind of the landmark changes in this branch of science that have occurred as a result of this book and the associated movie. It completely changed the public perception of like 160 million years of Earth history. Before this story, the public basically thought of dinosaurs as like these slow, dumb lizards that were just kind of waiting to go extinct. And then everything you see in movies and television and stories since then is basically as a result of Jurassic Park. And that's just awesome. And I love when the public gains an interest in a branch of science, especially one that I myself have some expertise in and something that I know a great deal about and I'm passionate about. I'm a geologist by profession. So there's that. The dinosaurs are really, really cool, and it has that extra little bit of awesomeness for somebody like me. But another thing that makes it great is Crichton himself. The guy writes these technological thrillers, techno thrillers, I've heard them called. Michael Crichton was a medical doctor before I think he was a surgeon, if I'm being specifically, I'd have to check that. But before he was a writer, he was a medical doctor. And as a result, his science fiction stories, which it's not like the spaceships and lasers kind of science fiction. It's the pushing the boundaries of what we're capable of here now today kind of science fiction. So all of his books are very extensively researched. How many science fiction stories have you read that have a bibliography in the back? I don't remember if Jurassic Park does. I know Andromeda Strain does. And that's how he does it with all of his books. There's one or two things in the science side of it that there is a bit of suspension of disbelief, especially if you are versed in either the field of paleontology or genetics. But other than those, even somebody who does have a background in an associated field, you do feel like it's plausible, and it's a really really cool feeling. And if you and for general public, like it all feels like it could be possible. And that's not just with Jurassic Park. That's all of Michael Crichton's books. They all have just enough in them that is so well researched that it feels like it all could really happen. And I love that about his stories. And all that being said, guys, it's not, a perfect book. As a general rule, from what I've seen, I read like, I think six or so Crichton novels. That's including Jurassic Park and its sequel, Lost World. He doesn't have like the best character work. A lot of his characters are kind of generic, a little bit tropey, and sort of cookie cutter. I've seen the movie so many times that I kind of like project like the character in of Ian Malcolm in the book is not identical to the one we see on screen, but I project a lot of Jeff Goldblum onto that character in the book because I just so associate that portrayal with this character. The characters in the book aren't really as strong, but in some cases that's okay. The characters are also different in the book versus the movie. I'll get into that in a minute. So yeah, I mean, like they're not the strongest characters, but they're also not like blank slates that could just be anybody. They do have some kind of personality and color to them. It's just not quite as much as you might expect if you're coming from the movie. One of the other things that I kind of have a personal issue with is that the techno terminology that's used in the story, the limitations of science at the time, based on knowledge of genetics, knowledge of paleontology, cloning, which at the time, if I remember right, at the time this book was written in 1990, we either just had or were just about to successfully complete the first actual cloning. It was right around that time, if I'm remembering right. But all the technical jargon that is used, and like the models of computers and the software, etc., it does give a little bit of like a dated aspect to it. One of the things that I appreciate in stories, especially like thriller type stories, is that sometimes they can feel timeless, and you can kind of take the story and transplant it into any period of time. This Jurassic Park definitely has a feel of like late 80s, early 90s. Now with me, that's not something that's necessarily entirely negative. That's the time period that I was just a wee boy in, so that's particularly, fond memories and nostalgia for me. But it could be a detraction for some people, and I do wish it was a little bit more timeless in how the, scientific processes are portrayed. But I mean, there's so much advancement that's made all the time. You kind of really you have to just do the best you can. And for the time, this was like super cutting edge. Jurassic Park was basically like looking into the future at the time, and that part of it, that is awesome. Now, this is usually the part of these videos, these reviews, or the why you should read it, or whatever I'm deciding to call these. I'm still figuring that out. But this is usually the point where I say why you should read it. Why is this worth your time? I'm going to amend that just a little bit. I've kind of said the good and the bad already. I'm going to amend that and kind of say that this is why you should read it even if you have seen the movie. Because Jurassic Park does a thing like The Shining does. They're wonderful books, and they have wonderful adaptations. And they're not, strictly speaking, 100% faithful adaptations, but one is not better than the other. They both stand alone and simultaneously complement each other, and both tell just incredible stories. The book is a significant expansion on the main theme in the movie. I should say the movie is a simplification of the themes in the book, that being the consequences of meddling with nature. So, I mean, I don't really feel like it's a spoiler because it's, again, one of the most popular movies ever made. But when the breakouts happen in the story, it's in the movie. It's really like a human error thing. It's penny pinching on the part of the park staff and it's corporate espionage. And then when you get into the sequel movies like Jurassic World, they're able to keep the park running again. It's only when you stack human error on top of overreach that disaster strikes. In the novel of Jurassic World, the cracks show pretty much right away. The ooh ah, look at a dinosaur. This is amazing, majestic. The glorious theme playing. That lasts like 5 pages. And then stuff starts to kind of feel off basically right away. They go to the island because there's a possibility that stuff has already gotten off the island. You definitely have a much stronger feeling in the book that human error or not, the park was always going to fail. And I feel like that's a really cool way of looking at the themes of nature. In the movie, nature breaks out. In the book, nature just refuses to be contained, whether or not there's anybody actually messing up or letting the nature out, and it's a much more inevitable quality to it. The big breakout scene is like way more intense. The dinosaurs are like terrifying. They're not just these big dangerous creatures and movie monsters. They feel like forces of nature. When our characters see the Tyrannosaurus for the first time, the way that they describe it and how it moves and how it acts, it's like they're talking about like a walking apocalypse. Like it's like they're talking about a force of nature instead of like a very large scary animal. The language that's used to describe the power of these animals. And that kind of dips into another thing that I love about this book. I love about it so much. A lot of the scenes are really like horrifying. Like they're really really at home in a horror novel. A lot of the fates of the characters are changed, so some characters who survive in the book don't survive the movie and vice versa. But one character whose fate is the same, who doesn't make it in the movie and doesn't make it in the book, that character's exit is like one of the most viscerally horrifying things I've ever read in a book, and it's amazing. And if you've read it, you know precisely what scene I'm talking about because that's just like sticks in my mind all the time. And also, I mean, like the characters are different. They're basically like the same people, but you have a lot of condensing in the movie that just kind of like that's just a product of adapting something to a screen. You have to like streamline everything. You can't have as much backstory because you have to tell this whole story in like 2 hours. So you have a couple of characters that either aren't in the movie or have a significantly reduced role in the movie that are expanded upon in the book, or they're in the book but their traits are kind of split up among other characters. So, like as an example, Gennaro the lawyer in Jurassic Park, he's kind of like a weasel, and he's like the slimy lawyer, right? In the novel, he's actually pretty heroic, and he's a much more not a better character because he wasn't a bad character in the movie, but he's a much less unlikable character. He does like some brave stuff in the book, and those little differences really just kind of make it worth your while to read. Apart from it just being an awesome story, it's always fun to kind of, at least for me, because I really really love both the book and the movie, it's really fun to go back and forth and kind of think about the differences in both of those. So yeah, guys, that's going to do it for this episode in the library. I just adore this story. My book reviews so far have effectively been stuff I've kind of just finished. I'm going to try and get into more recommendation-y type things and do reviews or why you should reads for things that I've read in the past instead of just what I'm reading right now. But I mean, I'll just have to kind of see how that goes. This is one of my favorite books, and even if you love the movie, the book is definitely worth your time. And if you haven't seen the movie, firstly, like, what are you doing? It's awesome. Go watch it. It holds up 30 years later. But then also read the book because it's amazing and I love it. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you feel like I have earned it, and we will see you next time in the library.